On March 7, 2026, there was an attempted bombing in New York City near Getty Mansion, i.e. Mayor Zoran Mamdani's residence.
Two men, Amir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi, traveled from Pennsylvania and attempted to bring violence to New York City. They are suspected of coming here to commit an act of terrorism.
The suspects had thrown 2 homemade explosive devices towards participants of an anti-Islam protest.
I can confirm this morning that this is being investigated as an act of ISIS-inspired terrorism.
Thankfully, both devices did not detonate, and due to the heroic efforts of members of the NYPD, the suspects were immediately captured and taken into custody. Mayor Mamdani and his wife were not at home or in the area at the time of the attack.
My wife and I were at the New York City Sign Museum in Brooklyn at the time. We continued to be kept up to date as to what was going on both in the midst of the protest and the aftermath of the protest.
So, pretty clear cut, right? 2 men show up to a protest, hurl explosives at protesters, get arrested, and the NYPD calls it ISIS-inspired terrorism. It's terrifying, but it should be easy to report on, even for CNN, right? Right? 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would drastically change as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Zoran Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far. So according to CNN's tweet, the 2 suspects weren't ISIS-inspired terrorists. No, they were 2 Pennsylvania teenagers. They didn't mention radical Islam, but they did mention that anti-Muslim protest. Because CNN. And after intense backlash on social media, CNN deleted the post. A post regarding the 2 individuals arrested for throwing homemade bombs outside of New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani's home failed to reflect the gravity of the incident, thereby breaching the editorial standards we require for all of our reporting. It has therefore been deleted. The joke being that CNN has editorial standards. But even in their correction/apology, they still failed to label it as an alleged terror attack. Konstantin Kisin wrote, "It didn't fail to reflect the gravity of the situation. It failed to accurately communicate who was responsible, who the intended victims were, and where the blame for the attempted terrorist attack lay. In other words, you didn't accidentally downplay the seriousness of it. You deliberately misrepresented what happened to conceal the truth from the public." Seth Dillon of the Babylon Bee wrote, "Don't pretend you regret trying to make Islamic terrorists look like victims. Just own it." And conservative influencer Harrison Crank posted, "You literally wrote fan fiction for terrorists." Then X users accused CNN of using minimized framing, a media bias technique that downplays an event's severity via selective narrative and language. And I mean, which is worse, the right-wing protest or the actual attack? I'm sure you can guess which one CNN thinks is the real danger. Because in the article written on the matter, CNN wrote, 2 Pennsylvania men on Saturday followed the route taken by thousands as they crossed the George Washington Bridge into New York City. But less than an hour later, their trajectory took a dark turn. They just wanted a warm Saturday in the city, but their trajectory took a dark turn when they accidentally threw IEDs into a crowd. It also stated that the attack stemmed from an anti-Muslim protest. Now, you might think that the attack stemmed from the 2 Pennsylvania teens being radicalized and then bringing homemade explosives into the city. But no, it's the white man that forced them to turn into jihadis. Later, CNN updated the story with the following editor's note. A previous version of this story included a summary that does not reflect the gravity of the incident, thereby breaching the editorial standards we require for all of our reporting. It therefore has been changed. Ah yes, breaching editorial standards, which is the polite corporate way of saying, our journalists got caught romanticizing radical extremists, and the internet bullied us into changing it. Oopsie doodle. Yeah, you don't hate mainstream media enough, folks. So CNN was forced to make corrections to the Pennsylvania teen story twice in one day. But if you think that their journalists and anchors and producers would be extra vigilant and make sure to get the story right moving forward, well, you'd be wrong.
Up next, 2 Republicans say Muslims don't belong here after an attempted terror attack against New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson says nothing really to condemn those comments.
Wait. Did she just say that the attack was against Mayor Mamdani and then immediately pivot to Republicans pounce? Of course she did. Maybe instead of going out of her way to demonize Republicans, she should have been concerned with getting basic facts right. I want to correct something I said last night. The bombs thrown in New York City over the weekend by ISIS-inspired attackers was thrown into a crowd of anti-Muslim protesters and not specifically targeted at Mayor Mamdani. That wording was inaccurate, and I didn't catch it ahead of time. I apologize for the error. And her wording was still inaccurate, as Mayor Mamdani was not a target, specifically or otherwise. And remember, these are the people that claim to be the ultimate arbiters of truth and facts. So democracy dies in darkness. But they can't even get the basic targets of an attempted bombing straight. And watch holier-than-thou Abby complain about misinformation from you-know-who.
Conservatives are living in a completely different information world than liberals. And breaking that down needs to be done. Because when you don't ever even hear the facts, it's hard to even know that you're wrong.
The irony. But she is right about one thing. We are living in a completely different information world, because hours after Abby Phillips' apology, Edward Isaac Dover, a senior reporter at CNN, tweeted the following about a reported phone call after the attempted incident between Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Mayor Mamdani. Shapiro last called Mamdani last year to express concern over the now mayor's comments on Israel and anti-Semitism. This conversation, with now a fellow target of political violence, was a different type of call. Again, Mayor Mamdani was not the target of political violence. Why would radical Muslim extremists go after a Muslim mayor? I mean, I guess it makes sense when you're a senior reporter for CNN, I don't know. Anyway, after being called out on it, Dover posted the following. I want to correct something I posted earlier on X, which inaccurately implied that Mayor Mamdani was the target of political violence in last week's ISIS-inspired attempted terror attack in New York City. But he didn't inaccurately imply that the mayor was a target of political violence. He explicitly stated that Mamdani was the target. Even when these journalists are caught red-handed spreading misinformation, they still have to use weasel words to soften the blow and protect their egos. But welcome to that completely different information world where facts are optional and even the corrections need correcting. Now, if you follow me on X, and why wouldn't you? I mean, seriously, just follow me. I stated that Abby Phillip needed to make an apology on camera during a broadcast. And to everyone's surprise, she did. But would it be an acceptable apology?
This morning, I issued a correction first thing in the morning on X for a mistake that I made in last night's show, but I also wanted to do so on air as well. I incorrectly said that the bombs that were thrown by ISIS-inspired suspects in New York over the weekend were directed at Mayor Mamdani. They were not.
Stop. Abby Phillip is attempting a retcon. She didn't say that the suspects were ISIS-inspired. What she did say was
an attempted terror attack against New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani.
And then she went on to demonize Republicans because, again, Republicans using their words are worse than terrorists using IEDs.
I failed to catch and correct that mistake in real time, and I take full responsibility for that.
You failed to catch it. You said it. You can't blame a typo on the teleprompter for completely fabricating the target of a terrorist attack out of thin air.
And while we do make mistakes, it is important to acknowledge and correct those errors when they happen.
Oh, bravo! Let's give her a round of applause for doing the bare minimum of damage control after getting caught red-handed. But hey, at least she's an expert at spotting fake news when conservatives allegedly do it.
It happens a lot where people don't even know that what they're saying or what they've seen and believe is not true.
Well, maybe for the other half of her job, Abby Phillip could try not inventing her own conspiracies on live television. And it's just a thought. Anyway, that's it for now. Head on over to my super cool merch store at don'twalkrun.shop. Check out these videos that you probably missed. Thanks, YouTube. And I hope to see you next time. If there is next time.